This is by far one of the coolest RC airplanes to come out in a few years. It's the RQ-7 shadowed by Legend Hobby in half scale. Now, I was one of the 2 people to receive one of these early to build it and give it a review before the masses was shipped over to the United States. So if you click this video, you're probably considering getting one and want to see how difficult it is to set up. Now, this right here is a plug and play, even though it resembles an ARF style build. And if you buy anything from Legend Hobby, Tom, the owner, always sends some goodies along with your package. Now, this plane is 2.1 meters in size, which is very large, and it fits inside 2 smaller boxes packaged very nicely. So let's break it open and check it out.
All right, we got our model. So it's gonna come out in one piece. Let me not break nothing. Let's take our time and do this the correct way. There's only 2 of these in the United States right now. I'm not gonna break one. I'm not sure. I believe these are probably the elevators. If you know what an RQ-7 is, these are V-tail, or I believe it's V-tail. I think that's what you would call it. We got our wings, massive. These are, it's hard to see on camera, I'm sure, but I'll show you. These are carbon fiber. Very cool. It's pretty light. This is like nothing I've ever seen. I'm like crazy excited to see what this thing's about. Now these are some kind of metal. I don't know what they are. More spars. We got some decals. We got our prop. We're running a 15x7. And from what I read, I believe this is going to be on 6S. We got our 3 wheels. For you guys that are worried about landing, this thing's going to be a dream to land. Accessory bag. Kind of looks like the stuff for the landing gear, and I don't know what else is in here. Some battery straps, all of our screws and hardware, wheel collars. And here is our power pack. We got servos. We got a Power X brushless 410 kV. All right, so that's a good mix between torque and power. What did I say the prop was? 15.7? 15.7, 6S, 410 kV. That's going to be a pretty good flying plane. So I'm excited. Let's set this thing up and see what it's about.
Just like with any RC model you get, the first thing we're going to want to do is put the landing gear on. Now, lucky for us, on this RQ-7, the holes are pre-drilled and the nuts are inside the model already. So all we're going to have to do is line this up and screw them in. Now, I'm using blue Loctite on mine. On the rare chance I break this metal landing gear, highly unlikely, I want to be able to get it off. So let's get that installed and move on to the next part. Now, these screws are going into these prong T-nuts, so it's always a good idea to hold it and give it one last snug so that you make sure that that nut really grips the wood and we have no chance of this coming loose. And after that, she's tight. Now, I'm guessing the flying weight of this model is going to be pretty heavy because these wheel axles are definitely heavy duty. And lucky for us, they are lock nuts, so we're not going to have to use Loctite on any of these. So let's get these on and tighten it up with 2 wrenches. Our main wheels just slide onto those axles now, and they're held on by wheel collars. As you see with the green font, I'm recording some 9x16 for some short form. But once those wheel collars are on, we're going to tighten those grub screws, and we are ready to go. Now, because the RQ-7's motor is in the back of the plane, up front under the cowling leaves us room for that steerable landing gear. So it comes with a bracket, 4 screws to hold it on. I know this video is hard to see. I'm sliding the actual landing gear in with another attachment that's held on by a grub screw. Your instructions will have this clearly, and if you can't figure it out, I'm always open to email and willing to help you guys out as much as I can. So make sure you reach out to me. Now we're going to install the servo that's going to control that front landing gear. Everything is pre-fitted, so it's nice and easy. Just slide it in place. There's plenty of holes in the side of the fuselage to run the wire through, so this really is super simple. Once we have our servo all tightened up, we're going to want to loosen the grub screw that we attached on our front landing gear before, because we're going to need to install the control link from the servo to our control horn on our front landing gear so everything's nice and centered and works the way it's supposed to work. Once you have everything lined up, we can tighten it up. Now you can use Loctite here. I'm not going to, just in case I need to micro adjust it a little more, but we're ready to slide on our front wheel, and same thing as the back, we're going to use a little wheel collar, tighten up that grub screw, and we're ready to go. If you listen close, you'll hear the servo turning. Now the cowling for the RQ7 fits nicely right from the factory. The bottom is pre-cut, so we don't have to worry about that. Slide it right over our landing gear. It's nice and snug, but we do have to add screws. Now normally you have to tape a cowling, but it is pretty tight, so I'm just holding it there, drilling 4 holes, and then I'm going to add my screws, and that's it. Our cowling is on. Now moving on to the wings, this is where it becomes a mix between an ARF and a plug and play. On an ARF, we would have to drill our own hinges, but on a plug and play, they would come pre-glued. So it's a good mix here, but on the control surface itself, it is glued in. Always smart to add a little bit extra thin CA to that just to be sure. Now I will make note, you do want to glue these in exactly how it comes. Do not turn these upside down. Little thin CA. Then I'm going to push it in and move it around until it cures. I don't want the control surface gluing itself to the wing. We want to make sure we have a good flex. Installing the flaps on the wings is what we would do on an ARF. So it's 3 hinges per control surface, 2 screws per hinge. So we have 6 screws total. We're going to screw them on, and then we're going to repeat the same thing for the other control surface for the other wing before we mount them onto the actual wing itself. The easiest way I found to mount the flap to the wing is to hold the control surface next to the wing, tap 2 little holes so that we know where the control surface is supposed to go. We're going to install the middle hinges first, and the other 2 hinges are there, so then we could just screw those in as well. And that's it. That wing is done. Now we're going to repeat this for the other wing, but I just want to show you how nice and flush that this flap is sitting. Now one thing that's really nice about this model is for the main wing control surfaces, flap and aileron, the servo blocks are pre-installed. So all we have to do is slide our servo in and screw the servo into place. Now the next step is getting our servo extensions into the wings. These wings are big, and it would be nice if they pre-installed the servo extensions, but they did leave us pull wire, so it was very simple. Once the extensions are in, we can connect our servo leads and just place our servos in and screw them into place. Moving on to the tail end of the plane, we're going to need to install our elevator control surface the exact same way we did our ailerons. We're going to slide our control hinges into the plane, grab our thin CA, and apply a few drops to each one of those hinges. We're going to do it to this side and the exact same thing to the other elevator. You do need to epoxy on the mounting blocks for the tail servos, and while I have the epoxy out, I do want to get the tail boom set up. So I threw epoxy inside. This is the connecting piece right here. Now you'll see I've grabbed some more 5-minute epoxy. I'm going to load up the inside of the front tube, and then we're just going to slide it into place, wait our 5 minutes, and that's dry. Now while you have the epoxy out, it is a good idea to get this inverted V-tail connected. Just do a dry fitting always to make sure it fits nice, and you're going to load up these little dowels as well as the flat part with some epoxy. Don't go too crazy. You don't want to have too much of it bleed out, but you do want enough that it's going to hold. Now give that ample time to dry. Once it's dry, it's time to fish our servo wire through. Now you probably can do it without a metal rod. I use the metal rod. I'm sure anyone would do with a little tape, but mine has a hook at the end. It's meant for pulling servo wires through. It's always good to get yourself one of these. You can pick one up on Amazon. And then we're going to screw our servos into place. The tail boom of this plane is long, so they give you servo extension wires, and I love that they're hollow because we could hide the wire in the tail boom, giving us a nice clean look. Now set those aside. Once the wires are in, we're going to install our wings. Now the wing spars are metal, so you put that in the fuselage first, slide the wings on top, and then it comes with these little nylon screws. I'm just using one for each side of the wing. Make it nice and easy to take on and off. Now to install the tail boom, these two little holes right here on the top of the wings are access points for your Allen key. You're going to loosen them and turn the plane upside down. That's because there's a fitting inside that's actually going to fall, allowing our tail boom to slide into place. Now once it's in place, flip it back over. We're going to tighten those up. And it does help if you grease the pole a little bit so that it slides in nice and easy. It's time to mount our motor. That bottom hole is for the motor wires to go through, and the top hole is to align the motor with. So we're going to hold it. You can mark it with a pen. I found it easier to just hold the motor and drill the holes directly into it. Once the holes are drilled, we're just going to put our screws in. It's a good idea to add a little bit of CA to it. That way, if there's any vibration in the motor from an unbalanced prop, we don't have to worry about that motor mount coming loose. As simple as putting a prop on a plane sounds, I want you guys to make note that I actually did it wrong. So I'm telling you this so you don't make the same mistake. The writing on the prop should always be facing forward. Now, I did fly the plane like this on the maiden. It did fly, and it flew pretty good, but it was slightly underpowered. So make sure you don't make the same mistake that I made. Once your motor and propeller are tight, it's time to close in the back of the plane by installing that inverted V-tail. It comes with 4 of these little brackets, 1 screw for each bracket, and 2 get screwed on each side of the inverted V-tail so that we could slide them into place over those carbon spars and tighten them up. Now the last step that I like to take before finally adding my control linkages is tightening up the wires, getting my receiver in, and turning it on, because I like to make sure that my servos are all centered prior to adding my control linkages. I think that it's going to save me a little bit of time micro adjusting everything. Once these are in and tightened, we are just about ready to fly this amazing RQ-7. Now I was so excited to fly this plane that I actually forgot to film an outro for the build video. But I will say, when I was at the field, I did link up with the president of my club, Mr. Tom Hunt, and we came up with an iconic idea with this plane that's going to be available to all you guys through legendhobby.com. So keep an eye out on my channel for a maiden flight video. Keep an eye out on my channel for the FPV videos, as well as we will be dropping bombs and doing all kinds of fun stuff with this plane. And I really think we're going to change the game with the RQ-7 by Legend Hobby.